So Pakistan is going to be playing their last T20, and Pakistan's already lost the series. A series that they should have won, considering the fact that in 2018, Pakistan won in New Zealand 2-1 at the back of some really good performances by Mohammad Amir, who was the man of the series then, and you had Safraz, who was leading the side. This time, Pakistan has had its own share of troubles, including the fact that a lot of players have been injured. They're struggling with some, finger injuries. Babar Azam, their, primary main batsman, has been obviously out of action because of his injuries. And there's Imam ul Haq, who's struggling with an injury. Fakhar Zaman, who didn't quite make it to New Zealand because, he was suffering from fever. So Pakistan has had its share of troubles. They've also struggled in quarantine, not being able to move around much. It'll be interesting to see how much of a factor that's been in terms of just sort of getting out there and bringing their A game. I've got with me Monty Panesar. Monty, thank you so much for joining us once again. I know that you've been following the Pakistan-New Zealand games very closely. Not the kind of result that Pakistan wanted. Where do you think that they've really been lacking?
Well, yeah, thank you for, having me on the show. I'm very happy to, join you. And it's great to see that you're in Christmas spirits after, Pakistan have lost the series. So I think that's the kind of optimistic kind of, attitude Pakistan need to take into the third T20. They've got to remember that they were the number one team. And the biggest problem is there's an underlying issue with Pakistan cricket. Mohammad Amir has retired from all three forms. He doesn't want to play for Pakistan. And Pakistan I'm not even doing anything to get him back, to say, right, how can we get you back, out of retirement? They have no interest. So there's an underlying issue there, which I think is a reflection on their performances. You look at the most senior bowler, Wahab, Reyes, he last game 1 over for 19. The game previously, he went over just going at 10 and over. The most experienced T20 bowler, Mohammad Amir, wants to retire. I think there's a bigger underlying issue that's happening in Pakistan cricket right now, and the cricket is secondary at the moment.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot that's going on off the field as well. A lot of miscommunication between the management and the players, I suppose, that we've seen. But I mean, in terms of the batting that you've seen from Pakistan so far, they were 20 for 4 in the first T20, and they kind of struggled in the second one as well. What's been the reason for that? I mean, do you attribute that to some really good New Zealand bowling, or is it just the case of Pakistan not being able to adapt to the conditions?
Well, in the first T20, the big guns weren't playing, and they lost, and I think there's huge reliance on Babar Azam. Some of these top order batsmen, they barely have a strike rate of 100, and they are not they cannot adapt to this level of bowling, and also it kind of like highlights the Pakistan cricket in general. If their main players are injured, there's a few injuries at the moment, so they're kind of playing a second string attack, and it's just, to be honest, is not to the standard that it needs to be. So that's something that they need to, Pakistan as a structure, and they need to get that structure where they think, well, these are the 25 players we're going to invest in, and if we have a few injuries, we've got a backups. But the gap is too big. And that's something that, Pakistan need to sort of work out. How do we plan forward? What is our planning, our strategy to make sure that Pakistan is if the cricket is strong and healthy? Like even now, Mohammad Hafiz, he scored 99, played a great knock. He's only I think 42 runs away to, be, Shoaib Malik, the leading, T20 run scorer for Pakistan. But there's heavy reliance on just experienced players. If we take Mohammad Hafiz out the equation, we take, let's say, Babar Azam out the equation, and, Wahab, Reyes, Pakistan look very weak, and they've got to remember it's only in 2018 where, they were the top team in the world, and people said that, oh, they can't beat the bigger sides, can only beat the weaker teams. And now they're in a position where few injured players and a second, a second kind of string attack with Pakistan and then the batting, the gap is too big, and they need to address that problem.
Yeah, of course. When you talk about the gap, there's also been a gap at the top. With Babar Azam not playing, Fakhar Zaman is also injured. He's not here, and his form has been a worry as it is of late. So, do you think these stopgap solutions? I mean, we tried Mohammad Rizwan at the top and Abdullah Shafiq, and then do you think these stopgap solutions um, are something that they need to be looked at as well? Because clearly it's not working. It hasn't worked in the first two T20s.
Yeah, look, in the first, when you're like 30 for five, you're gonna lose that game. So that's pretty much, how it was. But in the second one, even when the big, the big guns came back of the New Zealand team, I thought Pakistan did well. They got a respectable total, but the bowling again let Pakistan down. So, you look at, some of the best, T20, bowlers that Pakistan have produced, the likes of Shoaib Akhtar, who knows how to bowl fast, who knows how to, get players out. Why isn't he involved in a setup with the fast bowlers? Just come in or be around the camp just to help fast bowlers only. It's a completely different skill when you have to coach genuine fast bowlers. And Pakistan, they, are blessed with, producing, just 140 plus, 145 plus bowlers. And you need a specialist coach for that, in my opinion. And that's why I think the likes of, Sob Akhtar should be included at some point, or even get him to work on a consultancy basis, because he knows what fast bowling is all about.
Hmm. Um, but they've also got Wakar Yunus, who is their bowling coach at the moment, and he
Yeah,
probably
but
would know.
Wakar Yunus played in the 90s, a very successful cricketer. He is one of the reasons why Shoaib Akhtar, and I'm sure a lot of other people around the world, took up fast bowling because of him. But you ask a modern day cricketer, who knows about T20 fast bowling, Shoaib Akhtar or Wakar Yunus? People say Shoaib Akhtar. And sometimes it's just good to bring in people. You know, Wakar Yunus is the main fast bowling head coach, but it's like, guys, we may need Shoaib Akhtar services just, for T20, just to help the fast bowlers. And it's no harm in bringing in consultancy coaching, bringing people just to, a few days of work, and then, they can help some of the fast bowlers who are struggling. And I think good coaching managements, good team structures know that we may need assistance externally, and they are not shy about, reaching out.
Now, speaking of the top order that has struggled for Pakistan, what do you think has been the real issue there? Why have Pakistan been struggling to really get going? Is it a lack of skill, or is it just a lacking temperament, or they're just up against some really good bowling? Because you do have like Tim Southee and a couple of others who have been really successful in New Zealand conditions.
Yeah, but Tim Southee didn't play in the first T20, and he
Yeah.
came back in the second. So I think for me, it's to do with slightly lack of skill, and also, we look at the stats of all these, the T20 players playing. None of them have a strike rate of like 150 plus, and you always need a power hitter in your team. They lack in power hitters, and I think that's, the area of where they've got to sit down and think, okay, I think they're making the wrong sometimes decisions as well, but they need to develop their skill. They need to learn how to, have a higher strike rate. How do you do that? And if we don't know the answer to that, then do we bring someone in to help these guys with power hitting? And I think they're the two areas where Pakistan need to work on, is possibly bring in just a specialist coach who knows how to, who can teach them to hit big sixes, fours, just have a higher strike rate than what it is at the moment. And I do think that sometimes having a country hero like Shoaib Akhtar, who's successful in T20, could just help just the out and out fast bowlers with their game plans, their options, and just come in on a consultancy basis. So then there's no threat to Waka Yunis, because we know Waka Yunis is a successful fast bowling coach, but Shoaib Akhtar is just coming in as an assistant.
And New Zealand, I mean, they've been quite spectacular. Obviously, home conditions, they're very familiar with it, but then they've also got a very strong team.
Yeah, New Zealand are very strong, and I think one of the reasons they are reaping the awards is obviously being in the IPL. The IPL is a big league, and Kane Williamson had a successful season in the IPL. Lockie Ferguson, halfway through the tournament with KKR, came in and he took 4 wickets. He was just a fast bowler's dream. So look, there's some element, I think, where Pakistani cricketers should be included in the IPL, because I think it would help Pakistan cricket. And you can see New Zealand, they are definitely reaping the awards of being in the IPL.
So for tomorrow's game, I mean, what would you say, what does Pakistan need to do differently?
I think for tomorrow's game, they probably, I can't see the likes of, Riaz playing tomorrow. I think he's had 2 bad games. He may need to just sit down and think, where is it going wrong for me? He's a good bowler, experienced bowler. Maybe, if I was him, I would get in touch with Shoaib Akhtar, because he knows something about T20 bowling. And I think what's been a huge positive is Mohammad Hafiz. Some people are saying, he should retire, get the youngsters in. What youngsters? There are no youngsters coming through. Mohammad Hafiz needs to play as long as possible, and he's shown that in the second T20. And his experience is absolutely vital for Pakistan to succeed in the next T20 World Cup, which is in India, subcontinent conditions, much more familiar conditions for Pakistan cricket. And New Zealand are completely the opposite. So it's not doom or gloom, but they need to just address a couple of problems, because if they don't, then the T20 World Cup in India could actually be not a good World Cup for Pakistan.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it needs to be a great combination of a blend of youth and experience, what we've seen from Pakistan. Would be nice to have Babar Azam back in the team as well. Really helps to have the number one T20 batsman at one point. Milan has kind of taken over. But yeah, so he's doing really well in that sense. But thank you so much for your time, Monty, and your thoughts as well. It's always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you for having me on the show, and thank you very much.